WEISBERG here, along with Stephanie Burke, the silent assassin Matt Costa, and science advisor Matt MONIZ. And great discussion in the first hour, talking with Stiles White, the director of the film Ouija, which I know that Ouija.
I don't think anybody knows what they want to call it.
Well, it's either or is acceptable. If you talk to Bob Murch, if you talk to Karen Dahlman, they'll both tell you that either is acceptable. I believe Murch says Ouija and Karen says Ouija.
Okay.
I think, if I'm correct. I know Karen definitely says Ouija because I remember teasing her about it, but it doesn't really matter which way you call it. Both are accepted, both are correct. But you hear the voiceover guy in the trailer, Ouija. So I'm like, that's the way that they're promoting it for the film. Mm-hmm. And that's the way I think most people probably say it. But
yeah, it's spelt Ouija, but
no matter how you say it, it still looks like a creepy movie. And you know,
it does.
Matt, you were talking about, checking out ratings for horror movies, checking out ratings for the movie online. And
yeah.
I think horror movies are a different animal when it comes to how you rate a movie.
You can't really trust a review for a horror movie. You have to just watch it yourself.
Because everybody internalizes that fear differently.
Everybody hates a horror movie when it first comes out. Everybody does.
Well, because it's not The Exorcist.
I refuse to watch any of them, so.
You don't watch any horror movies at all?
No.
So there's like horror movies that you haven't seen?
Yep.
You haven't seen The Exorcist?
Nope.
Poltergeist?
I've seen Poltergeist.
All three?
I've seen parts of The Exorcist. I don't know if I've seen all three, but
the original Amityville Horror?
Nope.
The Omen?
I think we did watch that one.
It's just Hocus Pocus and that's it.
I like Hocus Pocus. You have to think, when you get woken up in the middle of the night by spirits standing in your bedroom, you don't really need a horror movie.
That may be true, but I mean, at the same time, you also,
go into dark places and look for
yeah,
ghosts.
and people use that as a reference point. They use these topics as reference points in a lot of what you do. So you would think like when you're dealing with something and somebody's like, oh, just like in The Exorcist, you kind of got to know what they're talking about, right?
I guess. I haven't heard that too much, but I don't like horror movies.
Oh, see, it happens to me all the time. You obviously have never been on an investigation when people are throwing up pea soup and their head is spinning around.
I've come into contact with some things that would scare the pants off of people, but to me, it's like I know how to handle it in real life. Just the whole Hollywood aspect of it scares the crap out of me. I don't like it.
No, well, hey, to each their own.
Right.
Some people like cucumber pickled.
I was waiting for it, yes.
Well, the important thing is that, when it comes to a horror movie, you got to experience it. It's not just a matter of watching it, bring it down, and critiquing it. When you do that, you lose sight of what it is that's happening. And I know that based on the script of The Possession, I'm looking really forward to seeing this. I hope to see it this afternoon. My local movie theater was not playing it, so I wasn't able to get out and see it. I don't know what's going on with my local movie theater, but
I don't know.
I don't know why you don't have the big horror movie release that comes out the week before Halloween.
You'll have to write a complaint, maybe get some free popcorn.
I will. Actually, that theater's been pretty good over the years because I had to write a lot of complaints about it. I'll never forget, I went to go see Once Upon a Time in Mexico there, which, come on, it's not that great of a movie, but, I had already seen Desperado, and so I really wanted to see this movie, and so I went. I actually hadn't even seen El Mariachi, so I was like, I got to see the last movie of the trilogy. So I went the day it came out. I was the only one in the theater. And I'm sitting there watching. It was the last 10 minutes of the movie, and the film broke.
Oh, my God.
And I complained, and I said, can you fix it so I can watch it? And they're like, no, we can't, start. We'd have to, start the movie all over again. I was like, are you serious?
I feel like that happened to me once, but I don't remember
I feel
what
like
movie
every movie theater employee sounds exactly like that, too.
Every movie theater employee that I've ever known.
Do you want a large popcorn?
I've only known two people that have ever been excited to work in a movie theater. And that was the folks over at Flagship in New Bedford when we dealt with Melissa and Enrique. But everybody else is kind of like, yeah.
Extra butter, really?
Yeah, well,
Doesn't look like you need
you don't look like you need nachos there, fatty. But so the movie breaks, and I ask if they can just fix it so I can watch. It's the last 10 minutes of the movie, the conclusion of the film. He's like, no, we can't do that. We have to start it all over again. So I had to leave the theater not knowing how it ended.
That's horrible.
I know, it was very bad. And then I asked somebody when we became friends with people that worked at the movie theater. I asked them about that. They're like, they could have fixed that. They could have picked it right. That wouldn't have been a problem. So at least now movies are digital. It's a little bit easier. And people wonder why I pirate things off the internet.
Not that you're admitting to that.
My popcorn doesn't cost $11 at my house. But and speaking of pirating things off the internet, I hope everybody out there has had a chance to see Ghost Stalkers. Well, it's been all over the place. It's been, people have been saying to me like, "Oh, wow, why are you promoting that? People can download it because you can. The network put it up there for you to download."
Right. It wouldn't be free unless they meant
so
for it
many
to be.
people.
Is it
internationally
abbreviated version?
No, it's the full on YouTube. It's the entire episode. You can also download it from Google Play for free. You can download it from iTunes for free. You can download it from Amazon for $1.99. Because a lot of people, because of Ghost Adventures being a worldwide phenomenon, and Nick Roth, the executive producer of Ghost Stalkers, being, recognized worldwide and having fans all over the place, they had to make it available for people through the internet because they don't have Destination America. So in order for them to see the show, they had to watch it through these other means. And instead of having everybody pirate it, why not put it out there so that people can download it and enjoy it? And the reaction has just been tremendous. So thank you to everybody that tuned in. And if you are a fan of the show, if you liked it, be sure to tune in tomorrow night and make sure that you tell everybody that you know to tune in tomorrow night because, there's no Peyton Manning historic football game happening up against it. So let's see if we can get some big ratings for tomorrow night's show. And we'll definitely be live tweeting the stars of the show, John Tenney, Chad Lindberg. They'll be tweeting David Roundtree, the show's technical advisor, and myself will all be live tweeting during the program. So it's a chance to find out a little bit more about the process
It was really
of the
good.
episode. You liked it?
I did. I did have to watch it during the day the next day.
That's true.
I was watching it, and I think I made it maybe 5 to 8 minutes in, and I realized my husband fell asleep, and I was in the dark by myself. So I had to shut it off. But it was excellent. I think it's different than anything I've ever seen before for paranormal television. And even, sending it out to my friends, family, they all came back and said, it's so spooky. We can't wait till next week. When's it coming on again? And making sure that they all have DVR set and everything. So I think it's going to be interesting to watch episode number 2 on Monday during the day.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, when I'm doing my end of the job, I'm just accumulating all the information, the history, writing it out there, giving them ideas for things that they can do while filming. And between Nick as the executive producer and having the original vision of the program and just the great crew that works on the show with John and Chad and Dave at the location, everything that they put together, it really was. And people were tweeting about it, and it's the way that I felt watching it. It's like you're watching a horror movie.
But it's a TV show.
That's also true at the same time.
Right.
So, and they're taking things in a different direction than some of these other shows have gone. They're trying different things. And you know that you're doing something right when you end up getting the attention of the soup on E.
Yes, that was cool.
So when they decide to actually make fun of the show, then you know that you're doing something
you made
right.
it.
Yeah. And so the clip of Chad being told to be a man by a ghost on an EVP, that made it to the soup. And
that was a really cool EVP, though.
It was. I mean, they got some great stuff happening in that episode, and not everything made it into the show either.
Right.
But that was pretty good, especially when you look at it as being... Now, a lot of people are coming out and saying that, well, this is... It seems kind of funny that he gets this EVP on his first investigation for Ghost Stalkers in the first 10 minutes of the show, and, he gets this EVP telling him to man up when obviously he was so scared. Seems a little too convenient. I don't think I'm giving away too much information if I tell you. It wasn't the first episode that was shot.
Right.
It was actually the second
Comcast
episode.
actually said season 1, episode 2.
Yeah, because they had it confused because they had the original order. So that was actually the second episode that was shot. And that was actually an all-night investigation. So just because it looks like in the first 5 minutes, Chad walked in there and the ghost told him to man up, that wasn't necessarily the case.
No, you got to cut it down, just like every other TV show out there, whether paranormal or not.
But what a lot of investigators are coming out and saying about Ghost Stalkers is they appreciate the fact that it looks more like a real investigation.
Yes.
There is a lot of sitting around waiting for something to happen. It's just a condensed version of that. They're not going to show you, 4 hours of sitting there in the dark, but they'll show you 40 seconds of sitting there in the dark waiting. And so it's a chance to see kind of the reality of an investigation. And also, a lot of people are... See, I thought the backlash, if you wanted to ask me honestly, like what I thought would be the problem for a lot of people, I thought the backlash was going to be on the fact that John and Chad each spend a night alone in the location.
Really?
I thought people were going to come back and say that's very irresponsible. We as paranormal investigators would never go in alone because you can't verify that the evidence isn't something that was created by that person, and because it's dangerous to put somebody in that situation where they're alone in the dark and they don't know what could happen. I thought that was going to be the sticking point for a lot of people, but a lot of folks have come back and said that's what makes it unique and different, and that's what drew
That's what I think, only because yes, they're alone inside the location, but the other partner, whether, you know, Chad's inside and John's outside, making sure that he's okay. You know, if there's an emergency or something like that, just like the panic button, they have a panic button.
Yes.
So they do have something that, you know, alerts them to, is there an issue, safety, things like that. But I think what makes the show what it is Chad's personality, first of all, is totally different than John Tenney's personality, which I think the dynamic between the two of them is amazing for the show. And on top of it, going in by yourself without the camera crew, because, well, I mean, on paranormal shows in the past, the camera crew's either gotten in the way or, you know, things have happened, or you never know what can happen. This way you actually know that the person that's experiencing everything is experiencing it by themselves and they're filming it by themselves. I think a problem with paranormal shows in general is somebody says, "Oh, what was that?" and you see the camera flip around and you miss everything.
Mm-hmm.
You don't miss it in this show. You see everything that they're seeing. You're seeing their raw emotions, their raw fear, especially in Chad. And like, I love how cool, collected, calm John Tenney is. But even so, when I think when he actually experiences something, or like toward the end of the episode where he was shoved, you see the dynamic on his face change, and it shows a different type of emotion. It's a different type of fear. So it's really cool.
And well, I'm sorry, MONIZ.
Well, your backlash about people going in there and doing this stuff alone. Many of us that did this back in the day, it was just you,
right.
You know, so
and I agree. I think that there's nothing wrong with going in alone, and I agree that that's a perfectly fine way to investigate. But I think the problem is a lot of the modern mentality of investigating is that you can't go in and do it alone, because
Right.
that's been preached by some of the other television shows. You know, we would never do this, but we'd never go in alone. You know, ghost hunters don't go in alone. Always have to go in with another team member.
Well, I think
Everybody
because
investigates in pairs.
You have very impressionable young adults that are watching these TV shows that'll think it's okay to do something like that. So I understand why you think that might have been the backlash, but I see the other side of it.
And I think the other part too that makes it different is the fact that you know, you can tell pretty much from the beginning that they're a duo, but they're not a team.
Yes.
So you don't expect them to have to investigate together. They don't have to both be there. And I think and they each are unique individuals, and they each bring unique perspectives to the investigation. And I can talk about it in this manner because a lot of what you saw at home is stuff that I've seen this episode before because I was at the premiere, but for all the episodes going forward, you know, I'm going to be watching it right along with everybody else. So I only know what's on the page going into it in terms of, you know, here's the history, here's the hot spots. So I don't see what happens with the dynamic. I don't see what happens with their own emotions and their own perspectives on what goes on. And I think that, you know, you've seen a lot of people come out and say, well, you know, look at Chad Lindbergh. He gets the opportunity to go into these haunted places and he's a wuss and he cries and he gets upset and he gets scared. But
that happens.
Wouldn't that be a lot of people when they go into those situations? And isn't part of becoming an investigator being able to overcome that?
I still scream when I see a ghost standing in front of me. Or if I'm in the dark, I never go first. Right. Everybody that knows that has been out with me, I don't go out anywhere into a dark room by myself. I
have just been here with you in the studio after the show, and you'd be like, I don't want to walk out to the door by myself tonight.
No, because it's pitch black in here. I see spirits easier in the dark, so that's why. But it's not enjoyable for me. I don't like the dark at all. So I feel like his reactions or the way that he responds to different things is totally normal. I think that's most of America.
And I think that you'll see as it goes on, and John and Chad and Dave have all come out and said, you know, you will see that change as things go on, as he became more comfortable and as he became more connected spiritually.
That's the best part, I think, of a series is watching someone grow like that.
And I think that too many of these other shows have kind of had they've tried to have the person as a fully formed character.
I was gonna say like a set character.
You know, like this is your role.
Yep.
Your role is to be, and you go back and listen. We've talked to Brian Harnois about it in the past.
I was just gonna say,
and for all of Brian's problems, and the dude has had some trouble over the years. He's gotten himself into some situations, but you know, I do believe him when he said that to some degree, he was pigeonholed into a role. He's somebody who knew his stuff going into that. And he was portrayed as somebody that didn't, because that's what they felt was the working dynamic. Now, Taps can tell you that that's not the way that they saw him. They didn't
Right.
think of him as that way, or else they never would have brought him along on these investigations. But that's the way that the people who were filming the show shaped it.
Yeah, I think with this show, at least, it's a little bit more free from the producer aspect of things. The we have to fill this, or we have to fill that, or we have to make sure this is, what happens, or this has to happen every single episode. I think that's what ruins it.
And it doesn't really, I mean, a lot of folks are saying it's gritty, it's raw, it looks real, especially the investigations. And that's because John and Chad are the ones filming them themselves. There's nobody else in there with them. And as we found out when we've tried to film things ourselves, if you don't really know what you're doing, it looks gritty and raw and real because you're so worried about what's happening.
Are real.
The camera is just kind of like, and by the way, I have to film this.
I love them on social media too, and their individuality. And I've been following John Tenney more so. I don't even know if he shows up on my newsfeed, we'll say. And the stuff that he puts out, how he personalizes things to his, his followers, or lets them know exactly what's going on during the episode. There's no hidden anything. And I love the picture that he shared the other day of some people enjoy black t-shirts and just, generic clothes or whatever. I prefer to investigate in a trench coat and a tie, and he shared a picture of himself from 1987 in the same the same outfit.
Yeah, and that's,
so I think it's really cool. Like, you stick to yourself. You are who you are.
I love the fact that each person has been able to have their own personality shine through, not only in the show, but in the promotion of the show, being involved in social media. And I think this is probably, and I've, been critical of paranormal shows in the past, and I know that a lot of that will come back and bite me in the ass now. Because people will say, well, you're involved in one now. But I really do think that this one is different.
But I think your views about other paranormal shows were shared amongst anybody that was listening.
And I expressed a lot of these concerns in the ways that I saw paranormal shows with Nick when we were originally discussing everything that was going on. This is what I said to him is like, well, here's what I see is the problem. And he's like, dude, I hear you. Here's what I'm thinking. And I was like, the first time I sat in on the phone call where he pitched the original idea to me, I was like, this is it. This is what is missing. I don't know if it's necessarily, I didn't know at the time if it was going to necessarily play out that way because it sounds great in theory, but you wonder how it's going to look on the screen.
You never know. Yeah.
But it looks exactly like the way he had envisioned it and described it. And what I've really appreciated about the guys on social media is you have Chad, responding to people who are saying that he was crying, and he's like, I own that. It happened. And
I think that's cool.
And I don't feel that way anymore, and you'll see that. And you have John Tenney writing a blog about his impressions of the first episode and what happened. Dave Roundtree writing, addressing all the technical aspects of it, which is something that you don't really see in some of the other shows.
You don't. They are so involved, but because they want to be, not because they have to be. And they love to explain, their heart and their soul is in this series is what it comes across as. So I think that dynamic alone puts them aside from every other show that is out there. And I think Nick Groff, being who he is and coming from where he came from, he understands in a different aspect than just some regular producer that just wants to put a television show up and that's it. I think this will sell. Let's do this. He has the background knowledge, and I think that's what makes it.
This was the discussions were never, I want to create a different TV show that does something differently. The discussions were always, I want to show what it's really like to investigate. So paranormal investigation was always discussed first and foremost, with everything else kind of coming afterwards. And the vision being that you can show that and people will be entertained by it. But one of the things that, you'll see people saying, don't defend yourself against critics. That's like the one thing that you don't want to get wrapped up in on the internet. MONIZ, we've had it happen, especially in the early days of the show, where I go back to the Commander Sonny Cito episode where the only time I've ever seen MONIZ really lose his cool on the air, and justifiably so, when he called out Commander Sonny Cito, but not in a mean-spirited way. Just said, some of the facts that you're saying don't match up with the facts that are known about the case.
Correct.
And so he came out and said that, and she argued, and he got upset, and she got upset, and it turned into a little something. And then people were attacking him on the internet. People just killing him on the message board, her army of fans, which I never would have thought Commander Sonny Cito, a reincarnated Roswell alien,
apparently
would actually have.
A commander needs some sort of, following.
Somebody to command, right? Sure. So he got kind of sucked into that a little bit. And the one rule that people would tell you is, don't respond to internet trolls, don't respond to the critics, don't give them fuel for their fire. And I would also think the same thing for John and Chad, but really they found a way to kind of explain to people who question things about the show and say, I don't like this, I don't like that. They found a way to come back and say, well, but here's why.
Yes.
And here's what you're going to see. And so it's, so instead of saying, well, don't defend yourself because that's just going to suck you into the hole, it's almost like they've been able to at least...
It's an explanation rather than
an excuse.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I like it. I like how involved they are.
So I know that some of our listeners will get mad if we just talk about Ghost Stalkers the entire time. But
right, but you do have a whole entire new list of listeners from
that's
all
true.
over the
And
world.
there are people who are tuning in for the first time, and these are some of the questions that they'll have. And if anybody has any questions and you'd like to call in, it doesn't have to be about this. It can be about anything. 508-996-0500. 877-996-1420. Matt Costa, I know that you're completely cut off from television, so I don't think you had the chance to see it.
I did actually see it. Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
What did you think?
I thought it was good. Yeah. I don't usually watch paranormal shows.
You
so
being a
I'm
skeptical person, I know that, you're watching some
Yeah.
of it and being like, really? Come on. But,
yeah, well, I mean, he got scratched in that episode?
yeah, John Tenney did, yeah.
Or, I thought it was Chad.
No,
Oh, no,
well,
it was...
Chad got scratched outside,
Okay.
near where they think the body parts were buried. But John was the one that they showed the scratch of upstairs, where something got him.
And
By the way,
the chair rocking was really interesting.
that creeped me out.
Yeah.
That creeped me out so bad.
Because I don't know if it was like the doll or whatever, but
Well, dolls are creepy anyways.
exactly.
But by the way, I'm friends with Van on Facebook. I follow the Whispers Estate. I'm part of the Whispers Estate public and private Facebook pages.
Mm-hmm.
I see all the pictures from people that go and investigate there. People get scratched there all the time. People getting scratched before they saw this episode of Ghost Stalkers.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been part of the phenomena that goes on there. There's definitely a habit of people getting scratched there. But yeah, you're right about that rocking chair. When I first watched that, I was like, whoa, come on. Because the original cut that I saw was a little bit different in terms of the way that they kind of put that right in your face. So it was a little bit kind of scarier for me when I saw it. And I was like, well, that would probably freak me out because, you'll notice there's not a lot of movement on anything else the rest of the time.
No, it was a really cool shot. And I was laying in the dark,
And
shut it
like,
off.
I'm out.
And I get a text message from my father that says no more rocking chairs in the house. I was like, okay, I'll turn the light on now. Wait till I fall asleep.
Hugging the dog.
Yes.
I got a question. Now, you say that people keep getting scratched there. Are they scratched in the same place and on their body as well as location?
A lot of people, no, it's different parts of the house. But a lot of them, it's kind of the small of the back area. But I saw one where somebody was scratched kind of across the shoulder blades. Because my initial thought.
Mm.
But it's on the back. Mainly.
Yes, the ones that I've seen, but
Okay.
I've heard reports of people getting scratched otherwise. And a friend of a friend actually works there now, so we're going to be getting a lot more reports coming in too. But, I get concerned when I see this. I'm like, well, people are backing into the same thing. There's a nail sticking out somewhere that people are walking into. But it does happen in different locations in different parts of the house. There's a lot of the history of Whispers Estate that they didn't get into in that episode. In addition to, it's not just a goat man that's seen there. It's also there's a lizard man that's seen there.
Ugh.
So 2 different type of skinwalker creatures have been spotted in the house. There's a lot of other things, and I know MONIZ is kind of handicapped here because he's been traveling, so he hasn't had a chance to see it. But when you see it, you'll see a lot of parallels between other cases too, which in my mind says a lot of this phenomena is probably easily tied in to the portal theory. It's quite possible that these portals are opening and these same creatures are coming through.
Well, I look forward to actually seeing these episodes.
And I'd be interested in getting your take too, as somebody who, I know that you have been doing this for a long time, but at the same time, I know that, you have your style. You have what works for you.
Right.
And so I'd be interested in seeing your take on the 2 different approaches that are being used and how that kind of balances. Because
I'm all about people using different styles because it's data. Data is data. How you gather it is,
And also, you know, you'll have some pretty interesting takes, I think, on Dave Roundtree's equipment as well. And I've seen the experiment that they do in the next one. If you go to the Destination America website and go to the Ghost Stalkers page, you can see a little bit of the experiment they do next and tomorrow night's episode. But they basically use a high-powered laser beam, not a laser grid like you and I would get off the internet, a high-powered laser beam that they put into this area while running a smoke machine at the same time to be able to visually see the vortex forming.
That's really cool. I was actually just going to ask you, is there any sneak peeks that you can give us for tomorrow night's episode?
I can only tell you what's in the trailer, so you can watch those on Destination America's website, or I tweeted them out. You can follow me at Tim WEISBERG, and be sure to follow everybody on the Spooky Crew. MONIZ, we're going to get you a Twitter sooner or later. You're going to have to do it, at least to take part in the discussion during the show using the hashtag SpookyLive. We do have a call on the line, so let's take that call. Let me just make sure I got to do this whole thing here. Check the ID. All right, just in case. There's certain people we can't take calls from here. Good evening. You're on Spooky Southcoast. How are you?
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Back in the late 70s, I was stationed at Fort Rodman.
Really?
Yes, and which, of course, none of the buildings exist anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But there was no fence between Fort Taber. It was kind of wide open. The tunnels were wide open. And I investigated, you know, I'd go for lunch and I'd go into Fort Taber. And you could just feel it as soon as I walked in. I'm not a medium, I'm not anything, but you could feel something was there.
You could kind of just sense that presence?
Right. I mean, it was big holes in the floor, and you had to be careful where you walked. I used to grab the flashlight. But I walked into there. I walked into the tunnels, were wide open back then. There was no fence or anything else, but it was just a feeling. It used to make your hair stand on end.
Was there, I mean, back then, as you said, you had a little bit more open access. Was there a lot of people coming in from the outside then? Or because it was more active, was it harder for people to get in?
Actually, there was no fencing or anything else, so it was kind of wide open.
So you could kind of just walk in from where the UMass place is now and just walk right in?
Yeah, we had a fence around Fort Rodman. I was in the Army then, and that was an active base at one time. I think it had been since the 30s.
Well, I know that with a lot of the issues that they have now, you know, of course they keep the fort closed all the time itself, and they do have fences that they put up around Milliken. But there is concern not only for the safety aspect, as you mentioned, even back then there being holes and things like that, but also now there's a different element that's in there that I'm sure has happened in the years since when you were there, with all the homeless people that are staying in there, the kids that are partying in there. And do you want to know what's the creepiest part about it? To me, is you hear all these stories, you know all these stories, you know people are going in there drinking. You know people are going in there, let's face it, you know, we have a problem in southeastern Massachusetts with heroin. People are going in there, they're shooting up in there, but when you walk in there, you don't find the needles. You don't find the empty beer cans. There's actually very little trace that people are in there doing these things, but yet we know that they are. It's very weird how that happens.
Really?
Yeah, I have no explanation for it other than, you know, I asked the volunteers if they're cleaning it up, and they're saying no, that they're not going in there. So
I went down to the military museum, and I couldn't believe it because the whole base was gone.
Yeah, it's definitely changed, I'm sure, since you were down there. But they do a great job with that museum, and it's completely kept alive by the donations of people. So anybody that goes and checks it out, you can spend a whole afternoon just perusing the collection there, and make sure you throw a couple bucks in the bucket.
Yeah, it's great now, but like I said, back in the day, I remember walking into Fort Taber, and I just went kind of on a tour by myself.
Yep, and well, we're going to be heading back down there in the spring for a paranormal event, so you know maybe you'll want to pick up a ticket for that when the time comes.
I would.
All right. Well, thank you very much. You can go to legendtrips.com and sign up for the mailing list. You'll get first crack at them before anybody else does.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great night. 508-996-0500, 877-996-1420 are the numbers if anybody would like to call in or be interested in getting your thoughts on anything paranormally related. I've been sending out some tweets and stuff with some ideas and some discussions that we can put up on the table, but I think maybe we haven't done this in a few weeks now. I don't know if we still remember how to do it.
Nope, we don't.
Because it's been a while. But I think it might be time for us to maybe, just maybe, get a little weird.
More bad news.
Well, I got a great show for you today with some wonderful weird stuff. I feel so very weird.
The Week in Weird.
All right, first up we have claw machines don't just eat toys, but they eat little boys.
Oh, well.
We have Colin Lambert, who is 18 months old from Tennessee, crawled into a claw machine that you would normally see anywhere. I don't see many of them anymore, but
Yeah, they're around. You know, like Red Robin's got one, and
right.
you know, you see them at the mall sometimes.
He was
Amusement places, yeah.
right. He was entranced by the claw machine, like a moth to flame. Crawled on in. Diane O'Neill, the boy's grandmother, said that she had turned away for only a moment when the little adventurer found himself encaged. She said that all she could see was his feet. He had already crawled in. I grabbed his feet, and he kicked my hand and got in, climbed up over the glass partition, and sat down on the toys. According to the station, firefighters came and rescued the child within a matter of minutes. O'Neill said her grandson was excited to see the firefighters and even got to pick out a free toy after the ordeal. So, I don't know how, that was only a minute that she was not watching, but
You know, I
get a free toy out of it.
when I was a kid, I was always playing those games.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's kind of like there's like a legend in my family. Like me and my mom are like experts at the claw game and being able to get things out of it. But they've made the claw game harder over the years.
Yes.
But I will tell you that there's been more than a few occasions where I've gotten something and I thought that I won, only to have it get caught.
That's terrible.
And so I've tried to crawl up inside there myself to be able to get it. It doesn't work so well when you're my size, but maybe when you're that age.
When you're 18 months old, I'm sure it's very easy. But
You know what else is a problem apparently?
What?
Kittens and vending machines.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Meanwhile, she's over there jingling that roll of quarters in her pocket. So.
I keep a secret stash now since you told my husband to take it away from me. Next up, we have a Chicago man was terrified to learn that a burglar wore his girlfriend's panties and stole a picture of her before fleeing the scene. The creepy crawler was caught on surveillance camera at 12:45 a.m. on September 25th, rummaging through Steve Friedman's belongings. The victim posted the security footage to YouTube. The guy didn't take any valuables that we know of. My initial reaction to seeing it was mostly disbelief, but once it sank in, I was a little scared. My girlfriend was very scared, though. If you look towards the end of the video, you could see him take a picture of her off of the table. To be sure, knowing that a lurker has your loved one's photos is unnerving, but hey, the suspect did look pretty good in the underwear, we have to say. Police have a copy of the video, but no arrests have been made. That's kind of creepy.
Kinda?
Kinda. Just a little bit. And last up we have, this gets weird, a Canadian man has been charged after border agents at the Detroit-Windsor Tunnel found more than 50 turtles strapped to his body and hidden between his legs.
Yeah.
The Detroit News Report said that Windsor, Ontario resident, I'm gonna butcher this, Kai Zhu, was charged Wednesday with smuggling.
I'm sure he would rather he got his name wrong.
Yeah, probably. But you can Google it. Turtles. It's just...
Yeah, no, he's like, you can mispronounce my name all you want, in case my friends and family are listening.
He was charged with smuggling, illegal trading, and exporting. A bond hearing was scheduled Thursday in federal court in Detroit. A U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service agent received a tip about a large box sent to a Detroit postal center. Court documents say that it was addressed to Zoo and mailed from Alabama. Agents were watching the postal center on August 5th when he arrived. The turtles were found after his SUV recrossed the border and was stopped in Windsor. So, poor turtles.
You hear that a lot, like people just strapping pets to their
That's not
body.
the first
like
story
smuggling.
that I've read.
Like, I don't
like
understand. Like, are they that sought after?
Birds, lizards, all kinds of stuff, yeah.
I don't know.
There's going to be some money in it, that's for sure.
I guess so.
But I feel bad for the poor animals.
To being that close to that guy?
Oh,
Or-
yeah. Yeah. Or cats stuck in vending machines.
Well, hey, it could be worse. I mean, it was turtle eggs.
Oh, it was turtles.
Turtles
Actual
themselves.
turtles.
So, I mean, any chance that when they arrested him, is this what he said? No.
I've got a turtle head poking egg.
I'll just put that in a loop. I don't care.
You
All
can
right.
hear it better the last time you played it. But yeah, 50 turtles strapped to his body.
There's gonna be one turtle at Pop now.
I hope they weren't snapping turtles.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, well, that does it for the Weekend Weird for this week. If you have a strange story you would like us to share, just tweet it to us at SpookySC. Use the hashtag Weekend Weird, and maybe we'll share it on the show. And speaking of sharing, coming up a little bit later on at the end of the program, we will share with you the chance to win some New England Legends DVDs. The latest edition premieres Wednesday at 8 o'clock on Rhode Island PBS about maritime mysteries, which is why we were discussing Fort Taber-Fort Rodman earlier. That is one of the featured locations, along with the Newport Stone Tower there and the Rose Island Lighthouse. So that'll be a great maritime-themed episode with Jeff Belanger in the studio for the pledge drive on Rhode Island PBS as well. And if you pledge, you'll have the chance to win. You'll have the chance to get the DVDs as well as his book, The World's Most Haunted Places. So you'll want to save up and make a donation for that. Plus, you get all those great PBS, membership privileges they'd always talk about, like great museum discounts and all that stuff. You'll
Yep.
get all
You get
that.
like the PBS umbrella.
The
That
tote
was always
bag.
like the the tote bag.
My grandparents always had the
Yeah.
tote bag, and they had the sticker on the back of their car that they donated to PBS. All
There
right,
you
well,
go.
if anybody would like to call in, 508-996-0500, 877-996-1420. Good evening. You're on Spooky Southcoast.
Hello, love. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. As Fort Tabor, my uncle was in the National Guards, and I was like maybe 18, 17, and it was in the early 70s, and there were at least 4 hangings that they called the National Guards out at Fort Tabor. One man was hung, murdered, and 3 committed suicide.
Wow. I've never, in all the research that I've done, I've never heard that either. It must be something that they kind of kept buried, kept secret.
Well, they might have at the time, but my uncle was there, and I had 2 uncles they had come back from the Marines, and they went into the. They used to be in the armory all the time.
So 4 people, 1 hung and 3 by suicide. Is that what you said?
Yes,
And this was again what time period?
in the in the early 70s, late 60s, early 70s.
That's very strange, and that's just something else that we can add into the mysterious legend of the area. And again, like nobody's ever mentioned that to me before, so it's got to be something that they've kind of kept hidden.
Yeah, because I don't know why they did. There was all just a small article in the paper about maybe a 2x4 article in the paper about it. And they didn't give the names of the persons who died, or they gave an age of 43, 19, 21, and 20.
So these were all at the same time then?
These were all simultaneously within weeks of one another.
3 suicides and 1 intentional murder by hanging.
Right.
And any speculation on the part of anybody that you talked to that would know why this happened, what actually went down?
No, all we knew was that the National Guard was called in to cut down and remove the bodies.
Wow. Well, I will definitely see what else I can find out about that, even if it's something that I can't really share publicly. I'll at least see if there's a little bit more information available.
Yeah, well, then they kept everything so quiet.
Sure.
We didn't hear things like we hear today.
Well, I'm fortunate enough to work at the newspaper, so if there's anything in the archives, I'll at least be able to get access to it. So.
You do a great job, sweetheart. I'm in my late 70s, so I listen to you all the time.
Well, thank you very much.
I can't do without WBSN. That puts me to sleep and it wakes me up.
Well, I was going to say, I appreciate you saying that we wake you up too and that we just don't put you to sleep.
No, I always leave my radio on, and it's like a sleeping pill for me.
That's awesome.
Well, thank you very much, and you have a great night.
You too.
Take care. It's always nice when people say that they wake up too. So it's not just that we put you to sleep, because I've been accused of putting people to sleep before in the past. My favorite is when people tune in on Saturday mornings and they say to me, I love tuning into your show because I listen to you and I hear you and I know it's Saturday morning, and then I can just roll over and go back to sleep. I'm like, thanks. Nice to know that I'm talking to somebody who's sleeping. But whatever. They're still listening. I don't care. The radio's still tuned in. That's all I care about.
You do a good job.
Thank you.
I listen.
Well, you do, because I always see you, you're always like, well, I'm out in the car, I'm going to listen. And then you're like, what the hell are you talking about?
I think it's, I don't know how you carry on the conversations that you do sometimes.
I have severe ADD.
It's excellent.
508-996-0500, 877-996-1420. MONIZ, we had mentioned earlier that you were up in was it the Leominster UFO conference?
Yes, Leominster
and
UFO.
I noticed that they had some different people that we haven't seen around the area coming up to speak. Who did you get the chance to actually spend some time with last weekend?
Well, of course, you got the regulars like Stanton Freeman, and he's always a trip. The scary thing about him being there is he had just had a heart attack a few months earlier, and he's a trooper. And you have Kathleen Marden, who was there. She's Betty Hill's niece, and her and Stanton has written a number of books together. And another person that I found extremely intriguing is Steve LaPlume, who had a sighting at the Bentwaters base 21 days after the original 3-night event. And this was witnessed by somebody else. And he talked about the other people that had their events happen. And he verified that, there were, let's call it intelligence people roaming around the base, taking, all kinds of, let's say, backdoor type of interviews with people and stuff like that. There were a number of people that were they were definitely entertaining. Let's put it that way.
So in relation to the Bentwaters case, then once everything had gone down, and once the military had kind of come in and were trying to whatever cover up they were trying to put on, whatever type of story they were trying to get everybody on the same page, people were still having sightings even after that.
The sightings apparently continued on for a few months, even while they were still investigating the people. And now what most people don't know about the case is that following the first major event there, the 3-night event, 2 days after the last event there, one of the people that was involved in, let's call it the surrounding of one of the craft, he couldn't take it. He was basically a born-again type person, and it really affected, really messed with his belief systems, his whole outlook on life. And they put him out on the flight line with an M16, and he went into one of the bunkers and blew the top of his head off.
Wow.
And Larry was the first responder to the event.
Larry Warren.
Yeah, several other people wound up having other severe issues as well.
Well, I know that, of course, the story that we hear is that the reason why these ships, we'll call them, why these particular visitors might have been targeting that base was because they were storing nuclear weapons there.
That is confirmed.
And so if that's the case, did they move the nukes after that 3-day event, the famous sighting that everybody knows well? So they were
they weren't just moved; they had to be repaired.
So they were taken away from the Bentwaters base.
No, they were serviced on base.
Okay.
They brought specialists in from Germany to work on them. A lot of their gimbal systems were highly messed up, which made them inoperable. In other words, they wouldn't be able to trigger or operate. The amount of nuclear weapons that were there were well exceeded what they were even permitted in the country legally.
That was the concern, was that they thought it was, they were being spied on because they were not following things on the up and up.
Right.
But in that time then, between the 3-day event and the sighting of this gentleman, Mr.
Steve.
LaPlume, that you talked about, in that time, did they remove all the nukes during that time period?
They were still there because the events that were going on in Europe at that time were still heating up. This is the height of the Solidarity movement in the strikes in the shipyards in Gdansk and stuff like that. And the Russians had moved literally thousands and thousands of troops and tanks on the border.
So these visitors could have still been there for the same purpose, to see what was going on with those weapons.
Correct. Why are all of these, hot pieces of equipment there? What's going on?
Well, it just adds another layer to the story, and I just hope that Peter Robbins isn't going to start launching into Left at Eastgate 2, because I know that he spent a good decade of his life working on the first book.
More than that, he just put another book together that's free online, and what I'll do is I'll forward you the information. You can leave the link up. It's a review of one of the latest Bentwaters books released by one of the other people, and it helps correct, shall we say, some of the inaccuracies in that book, and we'll leave that at that.
Sure. But we'll put it out there for people to be able to check out for themselves.
Let them make their own choice.
And so it seems like it was a great conference, though, overall.
Oh, yeah. Definitely was a good conference. Steve Fermani, I don't know if I think you have met him once. Local director of MUFON for Massachusetts. Really nice guy. He put on a very good event, and the mayor of the town actually got up and spoke, and it was a pretty neat little event.
Well, they were actually having here in New Bedford this past weekend, they've been having the Connecting for Change conference. And as a result of that, they've been bringing in a lot of different thoughts and different approaches and different beliefs into the city. And it's been great to hear the reaction of people who've been going to some of these events. I know that Greg was covering some of them here at WBSM earlier, but I have the chance on Tuesday to talk to Dr. Eben Alexander, who is a neurosurgeon who had a near-death experience and has now proceeded to study near-death experiences, and he's written the book Proof of Heaven, and now The Map of Heaven, his new book. So we're going to actually have him joining us I think probably in December, like right around Christmas, because it's a good time to really talk about spirituality and those types of topics. And plus, we want to make sure, of course, that Stephanie, that you're back, because this is going to be the last week that you're with us for a while.
Yes, it is.
You've got some other plans. She's actually, I don't know if you know about this, this whole thing is a ruse. That's like one of those pregnancy suits. It's all just so she can go start her own show and compete against us on another station.
It's because I secretly hate you. That's exactly it.
I knew it all along. I could tell. So but you'll be gone for a few weeks, of course, to experience the miracle of life, and then you're going to come back to the disappointing crash of being part of Spooky Southcoast again.
There better not be a crash. I will be calling in.
It will be a crash for you when this is what you come back to.
No.
After
the
leaving,
only crashes will be UFOs.
Just remember, okay? Just remember, for all these past months, you've been with us since May.
Yep.
So for all these past months, all that we've been doing here is getting you ready to be a mom.
There you
go. By taking care of us 3 children, we have helped you prepare.
That's okay.
The only problem is we haven't really turned Brendan into much of a dad.
No,
he's
not here.
We just kind of suck him down with us.
Yeah. Fourth child.
I know. You were never there for me. After this is over, we're all going to get together and sing Cats in the Cradle with our arms around each other.
Well, I will be back eventually, and I'm looking forward to having Dr. Alexander on.
And we're going to try and connect with you a little bit, too, while you're out. We'll see if we can maybe do it via Skype, depending on the baby's sleep schedule, and on Brendan's sleep schedule, too, because we don't want you to keep him up all night.
We'll leave him home with the baby. I'll come in and talk paranormal.
He's already making breastfeeding motions over there. So, yeah, well, of course, you can come back whenever you are ready to do so. But for the rest of you, we'll be here each and every week. And again, if you are new to the show, if this is your first time hearing it, we've been doing this now since January of 2006. So we are about to celebrate our 9th anniversary coming up in January of this year. We'll be entering our 10th year of broadcasting the program, so that's pretty special. Not a lot of radio shows last that long, let alone paranormal radio shows. So you want to definitely stay tuned for all the things that we have planned coming up. But if you are new to the show and you want to check out everything that we've done before, it's all available. It's all free. You can go to iTunes. You can go to anywhere the podcasts are found. You can go to our website, and you'll be able to download past episodes. There is a little bit of a problem with the iTunes archive because of our podcast server. They can only hold the last 100 episodes of the show. So what they have done is they have created an alternate feed that if you go to our website, you'll see a post on the slider at the top that says our archives have moved. When you click that, you will get the RSS feed of all those episodes, and you can go in there and click them and download them. It's a big jumbled mess, but it's the only way that they can get them to us for right now. But you'll be able to check those out and download them for yourself. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of free episodes for you. Thousands of hours of the program for you to check out. Some great shows, some that we're proud of, some that we're not so proud of. But they're still out there anyway because we don't hide anything for you. And you'll be able to listen to those. And you can also watch the YouTube version of the show on youtube.com/SpookySouthcoast. And we try and get the video up there for most of the episodes for the last couple of years. It doesn't always work out, but we do what we can to make sure that we at least give you some sort of video component. And, of course, we'll just be here every Saturday Night Live. Saturday Night Live. I think we just got sued. Yeah. But we'll be here live every Saturday night to talk with you going forward. We do get moved around a bit for sports, but we try and make the best of it. So I want to say thank you to our guest tonight, Stiles White, for joining us. Thank you to everybody that called in, and we'll be back next week. Reminder, tomorrow night, 10 o'clock, Destination America. Go Stalkers. If you're not in America, you're listening somewhere else, we'll make sure that we have it, we'll have it out there for you on YouTube, on iTunes, on Google Play, everywhere else. You'll be able to catch the show, watch it, tweet about it, talk about it. We'll be live tweeting tomorrow night. Tell everybody that you know, even if people aren't into the paranormal. Let them know they might like this show. It's not just about walking around in the dark with some fancy gadgets. It's about the human condition.
It is.
All right. Well, that does it for this week's show. For Matt, for Stephanie, I'm Tim. We want you all to stay safe.
For local news, talk, and sports, the South Coast turns to AM 1420.